Before My Heart Gives Out by Kira 18 on AO3. Chapter 28. Count Me In. Ringing. All he could hear was ringing, as if the world had been plunged underwater. The sounds and voices muddled around him like a distant buzz of white noise he could not decipher. Eyes wide, chest heaving, he could do nothing but stare ahead, gaze just as empty as the space in front of him, which, a few seconds, or maybe it had been an eternity, held his best friend. Shinsou, answer me, damn it! Bakugo's voice filtered through the haze. The teen yelled words at him, but none of them seemed to stick in his mind, as though the boy was speaking a foreign language, alien language. His eyes wandered, but never seemed to stray far enough before they were drawn back to the empty space of air, like a compass drawn to its true north, just a feet away, only just out of his reach. He could picture it, in his mind's eye, his hand outstretched, fingers reaching for the boy he would not be able to save. Not this time. Not ever. Todoroki, in contrast, was solid, cold presence next to him. His calm demeanor was only betrayed by his unnaturally wide eyes. What the hell did you mean? Huh, Ibags? Fucking answer me! Again, he watched Bakugo's lips move, sound erupting from his moving mouth, only for them to fall on deaf ears. His mind only had one thing running through it, an echo that seemed to invade and dominate his thoughts until he could focus on nothing else. Mean by that? Huh? Why did you call him Izuku? Izuku. The whisper trickled from his throat, unbidden. Izuku, he... The words wither and die on his lips. His thoughts were too painful to materialize out loud. Shadow. Midoriya is Shadow. Todoroki concluded, voice solemn as he uttered what Shinsou was too much of a coward to say himself. The hell? No, he's not. Bakugo's voice grew more strained by the second, his eyes wild with panic as his gaze filtered between the two teens. He's blind. He's sick. How the fuck would he? This is wrong. Shinsou tried to voice his thoughts, willing his mind to go quiet once again, willing all these feelings to disappear. I wasn't supposed to. This is all wrong! He screamed, chest heaving with renewed anger and despair as he looked at his classmates, seeing them, really seeing them for the first time. He was supposed to be safe here. This wasn't supposed to happen. None of this should have happened. He knew what he must have sounded like, his tone hysterical, as his world jumbled together. Shinsou, you need to breathe. We can't help him if all we do is panic. We need to be rational about this. We need to find Aizawa and the other heroes. He could pinpoint the exact moment reality settled in Bakugo's mind. Could see it in the way his whole face seemed to crumble, his body swaying slightly, as if being held down by an overwhelming weight. He could feel it, mirroring his own form, as he tried to get up, take control of the situation, despite the thread that kept trying to unravel and slip from his grasp, regardless of his hardest attempt for it not to. Shinsou. And wow, he's never heard Bakugo sound so empty before. Explain. And he did so. He told them everything, in broken, sobbing words, as they made their way back to camp. He told them about Izuku's past, their meeting, finding out he was Shadow. He told them about the boy's powers and their consequences. Silent tears streaming down his eyes as he tried to form clear sentences, wanting more than anything for the two to understand just how bad this was. By the time he was done, they had arrived, and both Todoroki and Bakugo had fallen silent. They could see Aizawa, standing a couple feet away from them, and missed a sea of police officers, EMTs, and paramedics. The teacher was talking to someone on the phone, words rapidly being fired between him and whoever was on the other end of the line. Shinsou could see the moment he spotted them, as the man's eyes widened and his shoulders slumped in relief. The phone was still held to his ears, but now, with another hand blocking the speaker, he marched towards them. "Are you guys okay? Are you injured?" he asked, his voice urgent and to the point. "Mr. Aizawa, Todoroki began calmly. However, the man wanting immediate confirmation, and with the collar still on hold in his grip, he repeated the question again, an urgency in his voice they'd never heard before. "Answer me. Is any of you injured?" "No, we're fine. But Mr. Aizawa, Shadow, "Yes, I know, he's here. If you're not injured, please head to the medical tents for a checkup anyways, and then go join your classmates." The man's eyes were trained on the wood behind them, as if expecting the Vigilante to pop out of the forages. "No, Aizawa-sensei, you don't understand." The man was already back to his heated conversation on the phone, which now, up close, they could tell was with the police captain. "Eraserhead." Shinsou's voice sounded harsh to his own ears, his tone carrying a heavy, serious tinge to it. It stopped the hero in his tracks, gray eyes immediately connecting with Shinsou's, as he gave him their full attention. "I'll call you back." The man spoke into the speaker, immediately hanging up the phone without bothering to wait for a response. Shadow's gone. Now that he could speak freely, he felt the words falter in his mind, too weak to voice what he really wanted to say. "Did you see him leave already?" He could see the edge of something dark in the hero's eyes, a suspicion the man was trying to stifle down, despite his growing sense of dread. "The League has him. The League of Villains took Izuku." Bakugo blurted, uncharacteristically desperate as he spoke. The phone fell to the ground, hitting the dirt with a soft thud. Forgotten, as for the first time in long, Aizawa Shota felt real, crushing fear. The world tilted on its axis, twisting and morphing into something Izuku could not even begin to describe. His senses of distance and space vanished as the warp gate swallowed them whole. Disorientation and nausea, intense and overwhelming, hit like a train. They couldn't have been in there for more than a second, but to Izuku's senses, it might as well have been an eternity. His feet hit solid ground, unsteadily and shaking as he crashed to the floors instantly. His legs felt too weak to carry his weight. He didn't know where he was. The trip had muddled his senses, and it would take him a while to regain his bearings. Hands, rough and unforgiving, manhandled him until he was standing up, his weight resting against the villain only for a moment before he was unceremoniously dumped onto a metal chair. His arms were seized on either side of him. He could hear the click of the mechanical shackling him to either side of the chair. The mechanical bit into his skin painfully with the tightness of its hold. His head lolled to the side, his awareness slowly expanding until he could make out the area around him. They had taken him to the bar. He was in the League of Villains headquarters. "Well, well, well." Shigaraki's voice, cold and dripping with smugness, reaching his ears, coming from a place behind him. "It seems their plans weren't wasted. I knew you'd show up, like the cockroach you are. Looks like you walked right into our trap, Shadow." "What do you want, Shigaraki?" His voice was steadier than he felt. His tone was low and serious as he addressed the man. His whole body ached. He felt tired and hurt. He just wanted to get this over with. "For one, I think we'll all agree we'd like to finally see the face behind the mask." The villain responded. Shadow could feel him turning to the rest of the villains gathered around them. Each one of them took a different place in the bar. Any objections? No? They were all on the metaphorical edge of their seats. He could feel it in their posture. He could even sense Dobby's anticipation as the man fidgeted with the staples buried in his burnt skin. With slow, prolonged movements. The villain scratched lean, carcellated fingers towards Izuku's head. The cloth crumbled to dust the moment 5 fingers made contact with it. He could feel the weight changing and falling away, ash coating his hair as it scattered over him. He didn't know if Shigaraki recognized him yet. With the mask still tied to his eyes, covering half of his face, he remembers the green hair being strangely distinctive. The villain didn't stop there. To Izuku's rising horror, with agonizing slow movements, as if to stretch out the moment indefinitely, Shigaraki lowered one finger at a time onto his mask. His heart threatened to break right out of his rib cage as his thin fabric dissolved under the man's touch. Rough fingers ghosting across his skin for a quarter of a second. A silent threat, a show of power. Silence, complete and uncompressing, settled in the space between them, hanging in the air like a cloud. You, the villain hissed, anger dripping from his every word. It was you! All this time! A snarl left his lips as he reached for the closest object, a cup resting seamlessly on the counter. It smashed it against the wall behind Izuku's head, stray shards exploding on impact. The sound rang in his ears, making him flinch involuntarily. You're the brat that ruined my quest in Kimino Ward. I know him. Who is that? Twice, if he remembers correctly from his research, shouted in combination, his tone changing in between his 2 sentences. His scars are so pretty. Toga cooed, giggling, her face uncomfortably close. He could feel her stare, making his skin crawl. Look at his eyes. Why does he look like that? Did he hit his head or something? Spinner asked, oblivious to the dawning realization that fell on the rest of his comrades. He's blind, you idiot! Dobby recommended, his arms twisting until they were crossed over his chest. Ha! Twice bursted out suddenly, his laughter startling some of the villains as he jumped, pointing a finger at Shigaraki. Pathetic. You kept losing to a blind kid, man. So strong. Shut up. The villain hissed. His tone bore no space for jets. His anger was rising to his pre-callous levels. This doesn't change anything. Would you like to proceed with the plan, Tomura? Kiriguri, who until now had been silent, polishing a whiskey glass, spoke up. Yeah, let's do it. The crazed grin stretched across the man's features as he once again turned to face the vigilante. You'd like this plan, I think. He started ominously. You were the one who inspired me to do it, after all. After that little stunt you pulled in Kamino. He turned back to his comrades. He added, rough him up a little, then knock him out. Kiriguri, ready to advance so we can move our little show elsewhere. Dread pulled in waves in his gut as he braced himself for what was in store for him. The dark aurora radiating from the man didn't help to quell his worries. The hall bristled with motion, crowded and busy with activity as everyone rushed to work. Shikuichi turned his attention back at the meeting at hand. His gaze was no longer drawn to the window overlooking the police station outside the conference room. The UA teachers were gathered around the table, along with the principal and Tsukauchi himself. We're wasting time as it is. There's no reason for us to do a press conference. Aizawa shouted, voice uncharacteristically loud, as he protested. The principal, who up until now has been eerily calm, just looks at him steadily. Midoriya may not be a UA student, but he is a UA ward. The public will want answers. Vlad can handle that. My attention is needed here, Nezu. I will not back down on this. His gray eyes spoke of honesty, leaving no space for argument. Very well, Aizawa-san. You can have it your way. The rodent relented. I understand you care for Midoriya-kun. However, you need to calm yourself. You will be no help to him if you're panicking. Aizawa's eyes hardened. He nodded his head once. He knew his behavior was irrational. It didn't stop his mind from coming up with the worst case scenarios. He just hoped Izuku was okay. Now, detective, have you got any leads on the League's location? Not anything conclusive. However, we heard rumors the past few months about their suspected headquarters. A couple of officers are investigating as we speak. Have you assembled a task force yet? All Might spoke, having stayed uncharacteristically silent until now. I've contacted both Best Genius and Endeavor. They both confirmed. However, given that the request was made using Shadow's alias as a hostage, some of the heroes were hesitant to cooperate. How many agreed? 5 full-fledged pro heroes and 7 sidekicks. Similar expression of frustration and indignation filtered across the teachers' faces. What kind of hero disregards a child's kidnapping? Present Mike exclaimed in outrage, fists banging against the wood surface with a resonating thud. Tsukauchi, who until now was doing his best not to lose his cool, only shook his head, knowing they couldn't waste any time discussing the matter. Shadow was in trouble. He'd be damned if he didn't do anything in his power to save him. It seems we'll have to work with the numbers we have. As if on cue, the moment he finished his sentence, the door busted open, a gush of wind accosted the room, a couple of papers flying with the momentum. There, panting with a hand scratching his neck, bashfully, elbows still smoking, was Ingenium. Count me in. At the surprised looks he received, he continued, voice solemn, sincere. Look, Shadow saved my life. He's a hero in my book. He deserves to be saved. Welcome to the task force. Aizawa deadpanned, voice entirely serious. Consciousness came to him slowly, as if he was fighting against a raging current, waving through layer after layer of disorientation as he tried to focus back his senses. Something was covering his head, a bag of sorts. His head throbbed. A strong smell of copper emitted from a wound on his forehead. The gusting blood dripped sluggishly, coating the entire left side of his face, forcing him to close one of his eyes. His lips were stinging, having been split during the lengthy beating he got at the handful of the League. He doesn't know who participated, having been too busy trying to breathe at the time to decipher the different forms in his mind. His shoulders burned. His arms were shackled to the ceiling, figure hanging from the chain, his toes barely touching the ground. His entire body felt like one big bruise. An ache he could not pinpoint seemed to radiate through his limbs. The pain in his rib, however, coupled with the sound of creaking he could hear every time his chest expanded, spoke of a few cracked ribs. Taking in a deep breath and letting it out, he tried to magnify his senses, focus on his surroundings instead of what was happening to his own body. The first thing he noticed was the smell, a strong, over-encompassinating smell of ash and burnt chemicals caused him all at once. The room he was in was big. There was no apparent windows, leading him to believe he was being held underground. It took him a while, something he blamed on his added senses, but surely enough, he recognized the place. He'd been here before. In fact, he was the one who burned it to the ground. It seemed he missed the warehouse basement and its haze to destroy it. The structure wasn't stable. He could tell by the vibrating of the walls alone. The support beams had been compromised in the fire. On closer inspection, Shadow could safely say they would give way at any moment. Ah, look who's finally awake. Shigaraki cooed darkly, only now stepping into the room. Right on time. What are you planning, Shigaraki? His voice was rough from disuse. The bag under his head was making it hard to breathe. What are you going to do with me? Won't be fun if I tell you. The villain snarled, fiddling with something he could not decipher. A clicking sound echoed through the room, followed by the snapping noise. Focusing intently, he could just barely make out the form of a camera. Shigaraki was setting it up on a stand. You'll just have to find out with the rest of the world. Where's the rest of your crew, then? Don't you want them to be here for this? He knew he was grasping at straws here, yet he couldn't help but wonder where the rest of the league was. It was unusual to find Shigaraki without his rag team of misfits. Shut up, brat. I won't be needing them for this. Shigaraki's impatience was evident. They have other plans to be at the moment, he muttered, darkly, his smirk almost palatable. Now, get ready for the show. The meeting had been going on for approximately 3 hours. They were almost ready to go through with the string at the bar. The officer had come back with confirmation. Known members of the league had been sighted at the scene. The task force had been readied immediately. They were just waiting for the go-ahead. Ready to dispatch. Tsukauchi's declaration was interrupted as an officer busted into the room, chest heaving, as if he'd run through the whole precinct. Detective, you need to see this. The league has a countdown on TV. They're going live in a few seconds. The room's temperature seemed to drop a few degrees, growing cold as an implication settled on the group. This couldn't mean anything good. Dread washed over Aizawa. Worry grappled him like a vice as he watched the detective turn on his computer, connecting it to the screen on the front of the room for everyone to see. The previously black screen lit up with a timer. The numbers dwindled slowly, ominously. It showed a growing number of viewers at the bottom. The whole country had to be watching this. They waited for what felt like an eternity. Finally, a big 0 was displayed in bold in the middle of the black screen. The live feed had started. So, I have a prediction and I really don't like it. And, it involves fire. And I don't like it. God, I'm gonna fucking sob. I can't. I don't want to read the next chapter. I really don't. I don't. I can't. This. Oh my god. Ooh, okay. Kira, 18. I hate and love you because this is definitely going in my bookmarks, and I hate you because this is gonna fucking suck the life out of me. You. Whoever let you cook, shame on them. Oh god, why? Why does this have to put the song as the world caves in started playing? God. Okay. I'm gonna end the notes because I'm sure you guys want to know about what happens next because I definitely do as well. As always, my raindrops. Make sure to eat, sleep, drink water, take your meds. Have a wonderful day or night. Link to my Discord server is down in the description. Subscribe to see more of my content. And thank you for watching.